Universalist church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share a part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome once more. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. Through the gifts of technology, we also gather virtually to celebrate community and connections as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Welcome to all those who are joining us in this way today. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love.
Arise, O souls, arise.
Hi, I'm Richard Thompson, and I'm a member of All Souls, the well-dressed man with the bow tie. It's my privilege to greet you here on this cool Sunday morning. I echo now the welcome statement in the video for both those here and those watching online. When we say welcome here at All Souls UU Church, we welcome you. You, with all the identities you hold, in your fullness as a person, are welcome here. We hope that you will bring your whole self to this time together. We welcome those who have long been a part of our community and those that are here for the first time. Please extend this welcome through conversations with new faces after the service. It may be the beginning of a long, warm relationship.
In the ever-shifting water of the river of this life, I was swimming, seeking comfort. I was wrestling waves to find a boulder I could cling to, a stone to hold me fast, where I might let the fretful water of the river round me pass. So I found an anchor, a blessed resting place, a trusty rock I called my Savior, for there I would be safe. From the river and its dangers, I proclaimed the rock divine, and I prayed to it protect me, but the rock replied, God is a river, not just a stone. God is a river, raging rapids and a slow meandering flow. God is a deep and narrow passage and a peaceful sandy shoal. God is the river swimmer, so let go. of harm. But the river kept on coming, kept on tugging at my legs, till at last my fingers faltered, I was swept away. God is a river, not just a stone. God is a wild, raging rapids and a slow meandering flow. God is a deep and narrow passage and a peaceful sandy shore. God is the river swimmer. So let it go. So I'm going with the flow now, these relentless twists and bends, acclimating to the motion and the sense of being led. And this river's like my body now, it carries me along through the ever-changing scenes and by the rocks that sing this song. God is a river, not just a stone. God is a wild, raging rapids and a slow meandering flow. God is a deep and narrow passage and a peaceful sandy shore. God is a river swimmer, so let go. God is a river swimmer. So let
Good morning. And welcome once again to this gathering of the All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church of Kansas City. Let us greet each other with these words, adapted from a classic opening by the humanist poet Kenneth Patton, in which he celebrated the joy of gathering for worship. He said, "We arrive out of many singular rooms, traveling over the branching streets, or logging onto an invisible web of cyber connection. However we arrive, we come to be assured that our friends in faith surround us, to restore their images upon our eyes. Here in this space, we enlarge our single voices in common speaking and singing. For these moments, we are aware of our solitude as that found in the midst of those who with us seek their inner reckonings. Our eyes hold the remembered faces. Their voices stir the surrounding air. Their words and their presence are with us in community. The warmth of their hands assures us, and the gladness of our recognized names. This is still and always the reason of cities, of homes, of assemblies in the houses and virtual spaces of fellowship. It is good to be with one another. 1 year ago this morning, many of us were feeling a shared sadness at the death of the renowned Buddhist monk, peace activist, and spiritual teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh. His gentle presence and model of socially engaged awareness practice had a global influence and shaped the late 20th century perception of Buddhism. His deceptively simple teaching was like this: when you practice meditation or walking meditation, don't make any effort. Allow yourself to be like a pebble at rest. The pebble is resting at the bottom of the river, and the pebble does not have to do anything. While you are walking, you are resting. While you are sitting, you are resting. Breathing in, repeat, In the here, in the here. Breathing out, repeat, in the now, in the now. Although these are different words, they mean exactly the same thing. I have arrived in the here. I have arrived in the now. I am at home in the here. I am at home in the now. There is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way. Although this beloved teacher's flame went out, its light has remained in many minds and hearts, and so continues to illuminate the world. In a few moments, we will have an opportunity for our practice of sharing the journey by telling of the joys and concerns that we carry with us. For now, we signify this time of special attention and reflection by kindling this chalice flame, symbol of our faith heritage and our community covenant. May its light reflect gratitude for the blessings of our lives and compassion for all who suffer as we rededicate ourselves to the search for truth and wisdom, the guidance of reason and justice, and the practice of kindness and peace.
Good morning. My name is Rose, and I light this chalice for the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
Please stand as you are able and willing and join in the affirmation of our covenant. Then remain standing as we join together in song. Together we affirm. Goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Our commitment to human fellowship means that we are called upon to be glad with those who rejoice and to weep with those who mourn. May the beauty and sweetness of these brief flowers remind us to hold one another in the bonds of sympathy, encouragement, and care. If you would prefer not to appear on camera during our live stream online, we'll have a few moments towards the end of this sharing when the cameras will be turned elsewhere. And if you want to wait until then, we'll let you know when that happens. Aaron, if you would place a flower for me, I'm thinking of my sister-in-law, Cheryl, who was excessively cleaning the house in preparation for our recent visit and fell in the bathroom and broke her shoulder. Yeah. So she's doing well, but we're wishing her healing. Are there other joys or concerns to be shared this morning?
Hello. Good morning to you all. I'm going to share a concern. I recently had some folks staying with me overnight, some of our houseless folks. It was a small family. We had found two children with these adults. One was the age of 3 and one was the age of 5, sleeping in the park on the bricks with no coats, hats, gloves, or scarves. They recently took advantage of my home and took whatever they wanted when they left. So my concern is that we're able to bond together, work together, and to find this family, and we're able to get these children in a safe place.
I have both a joy and a concern. The concern is that I lost my job with Cristo Rey. My position was eliminated due to restructuring. My joy is that I've already had 2 job interviews, so I've got some good prospects, and I also have an official boyfriend now.
Vertically challenged. I have a joy. Many of you may remember our old friend, Rachel McElhaney, who's here. Rachel got a new set of lungs Monday, a lung transplant, which she's been on the list for about 9 months now. She got the lungs Monday. She's doing well. Friday, I got a report back from Travis. The next report, were closing the incision, and we're working in the next couple of days to bring her out of the medically induced coma. But she got her new lungs, and we're so happy for that.
I am placing this flower from my mother-in-law, who passed away a week and a half ago. She was 99 years old, and many decades ago attended this church. Long after she came to church, she still belonged to a small group ministry with Dorothy and Gerald Culp and Jim Mitchell. Many of you will still remember them, although probably not my mother-in-law, Jean Baker.
I'm Jean Patterson. I have a concern. A dear, dear friend of ours is having his second brain surgery Monday. The tumor reappeared after treatment very quickly. This is terminal, so not even a miracle. But please send out good thoughts to the family.
My name is Carissa. I'm a Sunday school teacher here at All Souls, and I have a joy, which is I've had the privilege of participating in an OWLS training for our Whole Lives program. This next week is the last of the 3-week program. It's virtualized Zoom right now, but hopefully in a couple of weeks I'll be certified, and I'm optimistic that we'll hopefully have trainings coming up, or not training, but the program, and I'm excited to participate in that.
Yeah, I'm sharing on behalf of my granddaughter and my family. I'm grateful for this church. I'm also grateful for my daughter, who is doing really well right now. Have a lot to be grateful for besides that. My boyfriend, and life's good.
Good morning, I'm Mark, and I have many joys this morning involving football and other things. But my biggest joy is being here with all of you, and Kendyl in the pulpit, and things feeling more normal again.
All right, if the tech deck would obscure the cameras, please, anyone who would prefer not to appear. Spoken in our hearts, and invite you all to join in the congregational response, which will be up on the screen. And right will be your right on this side of the congregation, and left will be your left on this side, please. We begin with all of us. We need one another.
When we mourn, deep losses, and when we be comforted. When we are in trouble and afraid. When we despair, whenever we are in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. Or in the hour of our successes, when we look for them to share our triumphs. And in the hour of our defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die, and wish for gentle hands to prepare us for the journey.
All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us.
We'll now sing our children off to their classes.
Good morning. This is On Embryology by Lewis Thomas, from June 24th, 1979. A while ago, in mid-1978, the newest astonishment in medicine, covering all the front pages, was the birth of an English baby 9 months after conception in a dish. The older surprise, which should still be fazing us all, is that a solitary sperm and a single egg can fuse and become a human being under any circumstance, and that, however implanted, a mere cluster of the progeny of this fused cell affixed to the uterine wall will grow and differentiate into 8 pounds of baby. This has been going on under our eyes for so long that we've gotten used to it. Hence the outcries of amazement at this really minor technical modification of the general procedure. Nothing much really beyond relocating the beginning of the process from the fallopian tube to a plastic container, and, perhaps worth mentioning, the exclusion of the father from any role likely to add, without any justification, to his vanity. There is, of course, talk now about extending the technology beyond the act of conception itself, and predictions are being made that the whole process of embryonic development, all 9 months of it, will ultimately be conducted in elaborate plastic flasks. When this happens, as perhaps it will someday, it will be another surprise with more headlines. Everyone will say how marvelously terrifying is the new power of science, and arguments over whether science should be stopped in its tracks will preoccupy senatorial subcommittees with more headlines. Meanwhile, the sheer incredibility of the process itself, whether it occurs in the uterus or in some sort of vitro, will probably be overlooked as much as it is today. For the real amazement, if you want to be amazed, is the process. You start out as a single cell derived from the coupling of a sperm and an egg. This divides into 2, then 4, then 8, and so on. And at a certain stage, there emerges a single cell which will have, as all its progeny, the human brain. The mere existence of that cell should be one of the great astonishments on this earth. People ought to be walking around all day, all through their waking hours, calling to each other in endless wonderment, talking of nothing except this cell. It is an unbelievable thing, and yet there it is, popping neatly into its place among the jumbled cells of every one of several billion human embryos walking around the planet, just as if it was the easiest thing in the world to do. If you like being surprised, there's the source. One cell is switched on to become the whole trillion-cell massive apparatus for thinking and imagining, and, for that matter, being surprised. All the information needed for learning to read and write, play the piano, arguing before senatorial subcommittees, walking across the street through traffic, or the marvelous human act of putting one's hands and leaning against a tree, is contained in that first cell. All of grammar, all syntax, all arithmetic, all music. It is not known how the switching on occurs. At the very beginning of an embryo, when it's still nothing more than a cluster of cells, all of this information and much more is latent inside every cell in the cluster. When the stem cell for the brain emerges, it could be that the special quality of brainness is simply switched on. But it could as well be that everything else, every other potential property, is switched off, so that this most specialized of all cells no longer has its precursor's option of being a thyroid or liver or whatever, only a brain. No one has the ghost of an idea how it works, and nothing else in life can ever be so puzzling. If anyone does succeed in explaining it within my lifetime, I will charter a skywriting airplane, maybe a whole fleet of them, and send them aloft to write one great exclamation point after another around the whole sky until all my money runs out.
sleep. From the mountains of faith to a river so deep, I must be looking for something sacred I lost. But the river is wide and it's too hard to cross. I walk down every evening and stand on the shore, so I can finally find what I've been looking for. In the middle of the night, I go walking in my sleep through a valley of fear to a river so deep. I've been searching for something taken out of my soul, something I never lose, something somebody stole. But now I'm tired and I don't want to walk anymore until I find what it is that I've been looking for. In the middle of the night, I go walking in my sleep through the desert of truth to a river so deep. We all end in the ocean, we all start in the stream. We're all carried along by the river of dreams. In the middle of the night, I go walking in the middle of the, 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 I go walking in the.
Someone always looks at me funny whenever I say that I am a person of faith, or that Unitarian Universalism is a faith tradition, or that this church is a faith community. The more that person knows about my theology, or about us, or about religious history, the stranger the look they give me. This is a vocabulary challenge that I've confronted for a long time, and two people have helped me gather some comfort in the unique position in which I often find myself. One of them was Greg Epstein, the pioneering humanist chaplain at Harvard College. About a decade ago, Greg and I were having brunch with some UU friends at the annual General Assembly, and someone asked him in a rather dismissive tone, "You wouldn't say that you have a spiritual life, would you, Greg?" He paused thoughtfully as if the question had never occurred to him, swallowed the bite of omelet he was chewing, and replied, "Not necessarily a spiritual life, but I know that I have an inner life." The assurance with which he said this has remained with me, and often gives me the courage of conviction to insist that I also have an inner life, which I might reasonably think of as a spiritual life. The other person I found helpful in this context is Billy Joel, with whom I have, alas, never eaten brunch or discussed theology, but whose musical description of one of the experiences of his own inner life seems to powerfully capture what it can feel like for those who think of ourselves as secular people when we have experiences that might fall into the category of the spiritual. Billy Joel, who has identified himself as an atheist, wrote the song River of Dreams using the musical structures of a spiritual or gospel-based song, as well as biblical imagery in spite of not being a believer himself, which is not altogether unusual. He says in the third verse, approximately the middle of the song, "I'm not sure about a life after this. God knows I've never been a spiritual man. Baptized by fire I wade into the river that runs to the promised land." The concepts of baptism and a promised land, and even a life after this, don't really make sense outside of a biblical context. Although, as you might imagine, I would take issue with the notion that only being sure of some life to come after this is what makes one a spiritual man or person. Rather, it seems to me that having that dream in the middle of the night, or recognizing it, suggests that he and I are both, in fact, spiritual people, and what we are in search of is at least partly a vocabulary for talking about our inner lives that doesn't rely upon images drawn from a system of belief that we do not hold. At the same time, I would argue that poetry, the language of images, makes use of whatever analogies are available from the shared culture, regardless of whether or not they represent a shared belief. Most of us, for instance, probably have some notion of what the idea of baptism means, even if we don't embrace it for ourselves, and we likely understand how it might connect to the image of a river. The academic theologian David Tracy once called this structural connection of images the analogical imagination, and suggested that public theology consists of the task of making meaningful the common human experiences that religions point to in mythology and ritual. Intentionally or not, I suspect that this is what Billy Joel was engaged in, taking his own middle-of-the-night experience as something that others might share, and showing how it might relate to what feel like the only spiritual images offered by the culture in which we all function for the use of our shared imaginations. What could suggest how arduous an achievement traditional faith might be than to call it the mountain of faith, or how fear can impede our journey toward wholeness than to name it a valley, or how dry the disciplines of truth can sometimes feel than to speak of it as a desert. These images call upon us all to share in the exercise of the analogical imagination, to recognize how much the experiences of our inner lives may have in common, not only with Billy Joel, but with each other. So here's a question. Have you ever felt like there is some essential piece missing from your life, either because you didn't know it was important, or because someone has deliberately deprived you of it? If so, you are not alone. Many people experience this sensation of loss, what Billy Joel calls something taken out of my soul that somebody stole. That sense of loss and some sort of missing piece is what frames the inner life for some people and makes the River of Dreams compelling, because it seems if they could get to the other side of it or dive deep enough, perhaps they would discover the source of that middle-of-the-night emptiness and be able to resolve it. Others live with an enduring feeling of frustration, resentment, and blame, never realizing that in truth there was nothing taken from them, but that this is a common human perception that can be overcome through a practice of thoughtful reflection and reason. However, we can only heal the discomforts of the inner life when we learn to name them, or when the poets of the analogical imagination describe them in a way that we recognize, so that we can bring them into reasoned reflection. Many years ago, Harry Emerson Fosdick, the well-known and beloved pastor of New York's Riverside Church, as he approached retirement, reflected on his ministry in terms of ideas that have used me. I think he had it right. It is not so much the originality of our ideas or the conclusiveness of our thinking that measures our success in the religious enterprise. It is rather the scope and significance of the enduring issues that engage us and command our sometimes baffled attention. One of those enduring fascinations for me has been the idea of God, my perception of the living and luminous otherness of the world, the thought of a reality both immanent and transcendent, the ultimacy which is at the same time deeply interior and importantly, challengingly, not me. The demand and judgment that confronts my life and sometimes transforms it. The unstinted and unearned generosity and blessing that feels as though it pours over me at every moment. In this context, I should perhaps tell you the story of performing Quentin's wedding almost 20 years ago last spring. Please give your attention to Chuck Downing now for a few moments, and then I will do that.
Good morning. When asked to make today's invitation to the offering, I immediately agreed. But then I seemed to find myself at a loss for words. But that quickly passed. Instead, as usual, I find I have so many things I want to say, and not nearly enough time. And why is that? Simply because this place, this church, you, are so important to me. You are my extended family, my community, my refuge. It is here I find my opportunities to do something to make a difference and to help others make a difference, which makes this place so important to the larger community, to our city, our nation. Your presence here today shows to me, once again, how important All Souls is to you. So it's easy to make this invitation to the offering, this ask, and to encourage you to contribute a bit more still beyond your pledges and your time. The offering will now be taken and gratefully received. I think we need the text for the dedication. Thank you. Please join me in reading our dedication to the offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
So, Quentin Healy was 25 when I officiated at his wedding, and it had been at least a decade since he had regularly attended Sunday school in my congregation. But this wedding was an event of some significance to me. When I first met Quint, he was 9. His parents were in a foundering marriage, separated from one another, and his mother, Mary Beth, attended the church I served. She was to become, several years later, the director of religious education there and my good friend. When she and Quint's father agreed to renew their relationship, I officiated at their ceremony of recommitment. And when Beth died of cancer 10 years later, I conducted her memorial service. On the afternoon of his wedding, as Quint and I came to the front of the chapel to await his bride, he laid a rose on the empty pew beside his father. And when his new wife's 5-year-old daughter, wide-eyed and solemn in her satin dress, was asked for her blessing upon their marriage, she exclaimed with unmistakable enthusiasm and a smile that lit the small chapel, "I do." Love and grief and joy are spokes on the turning wheel of time, interlocked and inseparable. Sorrows distill the memory of love to sweeten our days, and love prepares for us the cup of loss in which we drink our heart's agony. Every love a balancing on the edge of the abyss of loss, every loss a confession of love. Every joy redolent of remembered grief, every grief a testimony to remembered joy. And I was stricken standing in that chapel in the fading evening light after the ritual of celebration was ended, not only by Beth's intangible presence there, but also by the realization that on the day when little Samantha of the satin dress would have a baby sister or brother to be blessed, I would be far away in another city, and other hands than mine would hold the water and the rose, and other lips would speak the words of welcome to Beth's grandchild. It is this kind of knowledge that wakes me in the middle of the night and sets my imagination in motion toward that river of dreams, searching for something intangible and inarticulate that can bear the weight of my combined griefs and joys, that can enable me to endure the overwhelming significance that our lives acquire in the cycles of love and loss and memory. The great Unitarian sage Ralph Waldo Emerson supposedly uttered several memorable comments as he lay dying, among them his reply to an elderly relative who inquired anxiously whether he had made his peace with God. Responded Emerson, "I was not aware that we had quarreled." I, on the other hand, have a running argument with whoever, whatever is responsible for the nature of this world and the terms upon which our lives are given. It is, of course, an argument I cannot win, since the universe sails on over the ocean of time, churning out beauty and tragedy and blessing with a randomness supremely indifferent either to my heated objections or to my approval. As a self-conscious being somehow separate from the rest of creation, the idea of God has never made any sense to me. If a being of that sort did exist somehow, the most I could say about it would be that from everything I have ever seen, it has arranged the world in such a way that there should be no conclusive evidence of its own existence. The historical attempts to identify and describe God, or worse yet, to read God's mind and impose God's will upon others, mostly seem to me dangerously oppressive and self-indulgent on the part of those who undertake them. It is inconceivable to me that any sane, intentional creator who might have willed it otherwise should have with deliberation ordained the extent of brevity, suffering, and futility that characterizes the world we know. A creator who could just as easily have made things different but didn't would be beneath contempt and hardly a fit object of reverence. The alternative, a creator who is entirely as constrained as we are by the limits implicit in the raw material and natural logic of creation, seems a superfluous entity. Why not understand the universe is self-organizing and be done with it? By the same token, an all-knowing and providential God who could be induced to change its mind about the ways in which the universe is intended to unfold merely by my pleading and complaining in prayer seems to me terrifyingly arbitrary. How would I ever know how many other people are praying for just the opposite of what I want? To whose request do we expect such a God to respond if the requests they receive are mutually exclusive? These old images of the divine have never worked for me, and yet an ongoing altercation with them is woven into the essence of what my ministry is and has been about. Is one of the ideas or questions that is playing itself out in the course of my life, and something draws me, as Billy Joel is drawn, to the river of dreams. I too am searching for something lost or stolen, a piece of my soul, visible only to eyes not absorbed by the sleepwalking world of seeming insignificance. Like Lewis Thomas, I find myself stunned by the sheer elegance of events that we take for granted daily. That one cell can differentiate itself and its progeny into the uniqueness of a human brain and personality clobbers me with wonder and gratitude whenever I remember to think about it. That lilacs can lay their scent on the still air of spring, that mere words can carry thought from mind to mind and awareness from heart to heart, that our love for those we have lost never wholly leaves us. A whole fleet of skywriting airplanes could labor all summer, scrawling exclamation points across the sky until all Lewis Thomas's money and mine both ran out, without beginning to exhaust the astonishment that this world exists at all. Why should there be something rather than nothing? Or the thankfulness that this world is so infused with beauty and memory and the possibility of love. It is that underlying assurance of blessedness and wonder that I think is being pointed to in many, many accounts of human spiritual experience. It is, I suppose, what the first people who tried to talk about God were referring to. And it is the source of my own ongoing argument with the concept of God, the struggle that seems to be using my inner spiritual life and my ministry as one stage for its unfolding. In my own experience, it has been a kind of reverse pilgrimage. For so many people, the journey toward a sensible, sustainable, authentic religious life has been a journey away from superstition and dogma, learning to conceive the world without a creator and puppet master God as defined by others. That pilgrimage involves giving up certainty and fixed answers. It means insisting on the integrity of one's own experience and the urgency of one's own unanswered questions, even when they are disruptive and threatening to the established order. As those of you who were kicked out of an Orthodox Sunday school for asking too many questions can testify, the established order is sometimes very easily threatened. But it seems to me that what the song is about is an essentially secular person's attempt to grapple honestly with an emerging and somewhat troublesome experience of a spiritual dimension in life. For those of us who are educated not to look to traditional ideas about religion or God for anything useful, it is very disconcerting to find ourselves night after night drawn to the shore of that river of dreams, not knowing what to call it or how to think about it. But in the final analysis, we too must insist upon the integrity of our own experience and our own questions. We too must be able to tell the truth that is sometimes only tellable in poetry and song, the truth that names the valley of fear, the mountain of faith, the jungle of doubt, the desert of truth. When those moments of unbearable poignancy come, when the rose lies silent in the pew, invoking the memory of the lost friend as her son steps into the roles both of husband and adored father, when love alone is not sufficient, for love only racks us with finitude and parting. Then must we dare to acknowledge our need for a presence that can hold that mingled and mangled joy and sadness in our hearts. When the rain clears and the evening sky glows with a beauty that bespeaks all of life's blessedness, then we need to be able to acknowledge not only the thankfulness of every given blessing, but that which remains when all the specifics are gone. The wholeness of it, the one truth that lies beneath all the particular truths and that sustains us. Call it the river of dreams then, that summoning and transforming power, or call it source of all, the object of our gratitude, not just for the particular gifts of life, but for the gift of life itself. In the end, it has no name, and all the images we use are products of our analogical imagination, partial, evocative suggestions. To be a person of faith, it seems to me, is to participate in that conversation because the experience of our inner lives matters. The longings and the questions that wake us up in the middle of the night or shape our dreams around a river that runs through the collective human imagination. I like the image of the river precisely because it is not anthropomorphic. Instead of making a God who is a pseudo-human being so that we can feel that we understand or manipulate God's purpose, the river of dreams suggests an elemental force, one that we do not control and that has no conscious or reflective will of its own, that yet has clear direction, and if we let it, will bear the weight of our grieving love and our remembering joy as it carries us from one set of questions and challenges to another. It invites us to be at home with the reality of that experience, not as the answer to anything, but as the questions that will not let us rest, as that which draws us out of our darkness and our sleep in the middle of the night of our hasty, thoughtless lives, to stand on that larger shore, dimly knowing that there is something missing, something precious and sacred and possible for which our souls hunger, and that we shall find only by entering into the deeper truth of our lives more fully. Much of the time we draw back, we are afraid, we are easily distracted, we wander away to the valley of fear or the jungle of doubt. But always we are called again, always we find ourselves once more standing on that shore, knowing that this river runs to the promised land, though not what the promise is exactly, something about integrity and wholeness, something about justice and peace, hoping that it doesn't take the rest of our lives to find what it is that we've been looking for. I like the river because it suggests that the substance of our faith is not a single entity, eternal and unchanging, loftily ordaining the world to be so and no other. Rather, faith is a process, as a river is a process, never the same from one moment to the next, an unfolding over time that beckons and flows, but that can carry us only when we choose to enter into it. My quarrel with the idea of God is not over, of course. It ends each week, indeed each hour, with the caption, "To be continued." My hope is that these ideas and images might use me all my days to our mutual benefit, that my own periodic exclamations of frustration and of wonder may call us all to the shores of the river of dreams, there to discover the love and joy, the grief and gratitude, the source and sustenance of the kind of faith that makes our dreams more meaningful and our inner lives more whole. Let's stand and sing together.
For
We release this flame for now. But we hold its warmth and light in our minds and hearts, carrying it, message of love and justice outside these walls into the world in which we live until we are together again. We all end in the oceans. We all start in the streams. We're all carried along by the river of dreams. May that journey carry you toward wisdom and insight, so that we may each find peace like a river in our souls from night to night and day by day.